Well, here we are, everybody, today with a friend of mine, new friend of mine. Sometimes people get put into your life because you need them to be in your life. And we're here today with Mark Goodman. Mark Goodman is a lot of things, but you're going to know very soon that he's an author. He's got a movie coming out, and it's all happening right now. And he is the #1 expert in the world in the business of forgiveness. So we're here with Mark today, and I want you to hear a little bit about his story. He's got one of those tremendous jaw-dropping stories that'll stop you in your tracks and make you think about your life a little bit. And then just with myself personally, I'll bring it to a personal level. I struggle with forgiveness, and I think a lot of people do. If you look around the world today, it doesn't take you long to find that there's so much hate going on, and people are struggling with forgiving each other, and there's more war, it seems, going on right now than ever, both here in the nation and then outside in the entire world right now. And I think it can all be solved with forgiveness. It sounds easier. It's easier said than done. But Mark, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody what your story is, and why who you are today, and why you're writing these books and have this movement, because it is a movement, 70 by 7, that has started. Mark?
That's great. Thank you, Jeff. And I really appreciate being here with you. I love the setup, too, by the way, of the understanding that forgiveness isn't easy. It is, at least done right. It's very tough, and the need for it. And a lot of times we don't even recognize the need. We go about through our day, through our life, of carrying around a backpack of pain, shame, blame. Do you know what happened to me? And have every right to hold on to that anger.
Yeah.
I get it, right? And I won't deny that. But then again, how are your shoulders feeling, right? Do you want to keep carrying that around?
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's heavy.
It is.
And sometimes there's little hurt, sometimes it's a big hurt. And when there's a hurt, there's an injustice. And when there's an injustice, there is a need for a payback, or at least so it seems. So little hurt, easy to forgive. Big hurt, hard to forgive.
Yeah.
And everything in between. So let me start there if I can.
Good starting spot.
What is we would say unforgivable.
Yeah.
Right? And so just a little bit on my story is as a teenager, I lived homeless in the streets of L.A. in the beaches, eating out of dumpsters, soup lines. But I have a great memory of that because it was actually a step up, and it was better than what I grew up in Detroit, if that makes sense. Now, if you've ever been to Detroit, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like Newark without the glitter. I get it. We're not talking about Detroit. On the outside, you have all the apparent dangers that some you can see and you can't see, but inside of the four walls of my house was danger everywhere. I grew up in a house with mom and dad who were alcoholic. Okay. You know the story. But dad was abusive. When I say abusive, I have 3 older brothers. He would beat them till they were virtually unconscious. My oldest brother picked him up and threw him out the front picture window. We're talking about a really mean, angry person. I had bumper stickers on the outside of my bedroom door, not as decoration, but to hide the holes in it where different family members would come at me with a bat or a knife. It was a very dangerous place. But it didn't stop there. My father sexually abused his own boys. So for a little boy to be sexually abused is one thing. To have it happen by your own father, as you can imagine, can leave some deep wounds and scars. So yes, California, the streets were awesome. They were safer. It was better. But my 3 older brothers didn't fare so well. My oldest brother passed away a few years ago, still carrying around that anger and that resentment. And he had every right to what happened to him. But and hurt people. And he continued to hurt his family and those around him. Mm-hmm. My next oldest brother lives in a special apartment in St. Petersburg, Florida, all by himself with real and imaginary walls around him to keep him safe. And he has imaginary friends. So it's safer with him with his imaginary friends in the real world of the memories of the things that my dad was doing to him, especially at age 12. And my middle brother, one who taught me business and led me to the Lord, called me, and while on the phone call, took his own life.
Wow. I can't even imagine. So how are you here today?
How am I here today?
How are you here
today? It makes
today?
no sense, Jeff. And not only that I'm here, that I'm not on drugs, that I'm not messed up. I got a beautiful wife. I got a beautiful life, 6 gorgeous girls, 13 grandkids, and one of the happiest people you ever met.
You do. You
How
are
does
happy.
that make sense?
It doesn't. It doesn't. People want to know, though. I want to know, and these folks are going to want to know because they're walking around kicking rocks, cursing everybody, when a lot less was done to them, perhaps.
That's correct. And it took a while. It was quite a journey. There were a lot of lessons along the way and a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I found the path to forgiveness. And that's why we call it a path to forgiveness. I wish I could say that I just woke up one day and it all came to me and it's like, I forgive my dad and everything is good and I'm fine. No, it was a long path and journey. And there'll always be scars the rest of my life. But the power and the freedom found in forgiveness, that I had a choice, that forgiveness won't change my past, but it will change my future for the better. Have you ever gone down the highway and somebody cut you off and you judge them and you're angry at them and you wave to them other than just a friendly wave? You know the kind of wave
I know which finger you wave with.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got
right?
it.
You got it. They've gone out of your life. They're gone. Meanwhile, you show up at work angry and resentful, and it affects your other relationships,
Sure
which it does. And holding on to that anger does affect other relationships. Now, there's a difference to a lot of people. Doesn't mean you have to reconcile with them, right? Forgiveness is not anything close to reconcile. Forgiveness is one side, reconcile is the other. Now, reconciliation needs forgiveness. Forgiveness does not do reconciliation. So I can forgive them regardless, whether or not they apologize or anything else. So just real quick to share with my dad, we did end up reconcile. At age 65, later in his life, my dad sobered up and turned his life completely around. And the last 23 years of his life turned into one of the most wonderful, godly, awesome men you ever met. If you met him, you'd be saying BS to my story, Mark. There's no way this guy equals that story. And the beauty and the forgiveness message in that you're never too old. You've never done too much bad to find redemption and forgiveness. And in our case, reconciliation.
What age were you when you reconciled with your father?
Probably a little over 40 years old. And it was quite a brutal journey to find the way. Detailed that out in a book called Forgiving a Good Man, which is kind of making fun of my last name, a double entendre. But now that you know my dad, also a good man, he became a good man. So how do you forgive a good man when he had done so many bad things? And so I detail that journey. So December 1st, the book comes out, Forgiving a Good Man.
Great.
There's a little pitch.
I like it. You can pitch as much as you want on this. I got question. I still have questions.
Please,
and of course,
bring it on.
So why forgive? Why should people forgive? I mean, somebody did them wrong and it was intentional, because I think we judge, ourselves by our intentions and others by their actions, but we also claim to know their intentions when somebody does something wrong to somebody, and man, they got to get them back. Now, by the way, my firstborn son, his name is Justice. So if you understand the revenge factor in my blood,
absolutely,
like I believe in that, in justice so much. So for a guy like me, why should I forgive people that wronged me? Why should I let go of that? Why should somebody out there? Everybody out there is mad at somebody for something. They're either holding on to it their whole life or it's short term. But this sort of anger management and holding on to things that somebody did wrong to you. Some people carry that to the grave.
Pay a price. What they did was wrong, right? And let's face it, they don't deserve to be forgiven, do they?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the expert.
Well, I'll say that they don't.
Okay.
But you do. You deserve it. You deserve it. With the freedom and the joy, using my story where I'm at right now as an example, I deserved to forgive my dad, not because of what he did or didn't do, but because I deserve to have a great life. And so I'm the one that benefit from it. And by giving that to him, it was a gift. And that's really what it's meant for. It's for giving. Oh, wait, that's what it's for. It's for giving, right? And I'm the one who benefits from giving that gift to that other person. And so do they deserve it? No. And when it comes down to the justice and the judgment, right, we want to stand in there. And when we're hanging on there, we're waiting for them to pay the price. They need to forgive. They need to apologize. They need to pay back. And often, it's never enough. What could my dad ever have said or done to make up the fact of the horrendous things that he did? The fact that my brother on his death certificate showed suicide, but you know now, and I sure know, that it should say unforgiveness. He died of unforgiveness. And that's on my dad, right? So what could he have ever done to even the scales of justice? It's impossible. So as long as you hold on to that, you can never be free. Because otherwise, if you think about it, listen, I'm going to make it really silly for you here, Jeff. The very person that hurt me, that offended me, what I'm saying is I'm going to give the keys of the kingdom to my happiness, my freedom, to the very person. So I was a victim, and I'm going to continue to be a victim until you control my life. How silly is that? Or I can say, I can take this under control, even though they don't deserve it. I'm going to choose to forgive, and I'm not going to carry that around another single day. How beautiful. Don't you want to be free and joyful?
Yeah.
I do.
So what are you giving away? You're giving away your pain, it seems like, or your suffering.
Giving away your pain and suffering. Absolutely.
Why is forgiveness so misunderstood, Mark?
I love that. Thank you. Exchange. We were taught wrong. Think about it. When you were a child, you got in trouble with your brother. Your mom said, Jeff, go tell your brother you're sorry. And I said, hey, I'm sorry. It's okay. And somehow or another in that exchange, everything became right again. The scales of justice were good, and it defined what forgiveness is all about. So forgiveness is one side of a two-sided transaction. There's the person who took from you and the person who is owed. And at some point, you say, I'm going to write that off for my sake, not necessarily for theirs, but for my sake as a gift. I'm going to write that off. It's not an exchange. And once you break that bond that there's an exchange that is all up to, they don't even have to be alive. That I have control, I can hop in the driver's seat, and I can say, subject to nothing on the other side. And even if you get that far, you don't even have to go back and tell them. And what's beautiful about it, if you know somebody has hurt you or something has hurt you, it triggers, right? You feel it. You hear their name, you hear their voice. You may even say, hey, I forgave them a long time ago. But if his house burnt down, it would serve him right.
Yeah.
Right?
So I forgive them, but I still want something bad to happen. Yeah, it's not.
You feel it.
Yeah.
Right. So what's beautiful is when you finally really forgive, that same thing triggered before now can be a test to see how far you've come along. So when I hear my dad's name now, I smile. I think about the good times that we had, especially in those last number of years. I smile now. Yeah. So it's biggest misunderstanding that it's an exchange. Reconciliation takes both sides, and there needs to be an exchange.
Okay.
Forgiveness does not.
So is your dad still with us today?
No. He passed away a number of years ago. And I was there with him, happy as can be, and had the excitement that he had of going to a higher place and spending that time together was awesome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Mark, you got this movement going on.
Mm-hmm.
So part of a better life is about all different things.
Okay.
One of them is just being more at peace. And obviously you're having a better life because of forgiveness. That's one of the ways to have a better life. There's a lot of different ways.
Great.
Live healthier, live happier, more fulfilled, more financially secure, whatever it happens to be. And so even in the financial field, there's a lot of financial people maybe watching because that's my basis of where I started in business was in the financial world. It's grown since then and it's morphing into more things. But how does forgiveness apply in the financial world? in that space.
You know, as we know, wealth doesn't define happiness. However, there's an old Chinese proverb that says, "He who says money does not buy happiness does not know where to shop." Right? And I've had it. I've not had it.
Right.
And so what is success? What is wealth? And I do love to define it that well, let's go back to that exchange a little bit, that there's a debt. Let's put it in financial terms. You owe me. And so I'm carrying around on my books a debt that usually, most times, will never be paid back. Or if it is, it's ridiculously small, right? You owe me $80,000. You show up and you pay me $12. Does that satisfy it? No, it probably makes me more angry. Jeff, you keep that $12 and I can tell you where to put it and it's not your wallet, okay?
Yeah.
It makes me more angry because it's never enough. Or I can say, I am going to write this debt off my books. I can keep carrying it around all the time, and all it does is hurt me and my business. I write that off on the books. That means in accounting, this is where it can get tough. Is you go to your accountant and say, write it off. You say, write it off. Write what off? You know, that. What are they going to say? No. Who is it? How much is it? Well, you know, whatever. No, $86.14. So you may have to go through an accounting. So like when I went to forgive my dad, I interviewed family members, old school friends, and you know what I discovered when I went to have an accounting? It was worse than what I remembered. I had mentally, for whatever reason, blocked out a lot of it. It was worse. But I had a full accounting. Anything else? Anything else? This is what I'm writing off. Now, at that point, when you write that debt off, anything that comes now is new revenue. So my dad did end up apologizing. Years later, we're watching TV, and a commercial comes on, and he turns the volume off. And you ready for this? He turns to me and said, Mark, if there was anything that I ever did when you were a child, I just want to say I'm sorry. Now, Jeff, is that not the wimpiest apology you have ever heard, considering now you know the story?
Yes, it's a very weak apology for what happened.
In my response, Dad, we're good. I wrote that debt off a long time ago. We're good. Turn the volume back up. I mean, literally that way. It wasn't until the next morning that I had to rethink that conversation, like, oh my goodness, what just went down there? But I had forgiven that debt. That debt had been written off. Now, you may have a FICO score, right? I filed bankruptcy. Don't know anymore. What's my FICO score? Now, you may have a relational credit score, as I like to call it, that's only a 200. It doesn't mean you have to trust them right up again. It's going to take a while to build that relational credit score back up again. And that's a good thing. However, it's a choice of writing that debt off so you don't owe me anymore so I can get it off my books. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like the analogy.
Good.
It makes sense. It's very
Good.
applicable.
Good.
So, look, where can somebody go to find more information? I know you said there's a book coming out.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Look, December 1st, and by November 15th, you can pre-order it on Amazon or Books and Noble, Forgiving a Good Man, 70x7.org, 70x7.org. A lot of content of how to.
And tell everyone where 70 by 7 came from, so
Sure,
they know.
It comes from Matthew in the book of Matthew in the Bible, the story between Peter and Jesus, and so it's an amazing story that we should always forgive, and the benefits because of that.
Good.
Also on Facebook, for those who want to follow us at 70x7 Path to Forgiveness. So, or actually, if you just look up Path to Forgiveness Facebook, you'll find us. It's easy enough.
And can you talk about the movie?
Oh, I would love to. So this crazy, wild story has been picked up by a movie studio. It's in pre-production now. We're moving towards the actual script writing next. And it tells the story with a message about forgiveness in mind, that this bad thing happened, this bad person, the antagonist, my father, 4 boys, all 4 handled it a different way. One chose to be angry. One chose to close in internally. One chose to check out, and one chose to forgive. All 4 boys handled it a different way. It's kind of like the way everybody handles forgiveness, the different ways. And at the end of it, who came out on top because they chose to forgive? So it's we're not preaching to them. It's told in the story. Let the story tell the story. But Lord willing, we'll have that out in the studio in the next 18 months.
Fantastic. So look, everybody, if you're watching this, you want a better life. One of the keys to having a better life is to forgive. So this is the authority on the subject matter, and he's got resources. It tells you how to. He says we're all told we should forgive, but no one's really taught how to forgive and how to let things go. And in his book, in his movie, from his website, if you could become a good forgiver, you can live a happier, more joyful, fulfilled life. See you at the top.